Tami, it is so wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I am so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a little bit. Yeah.
You know what, Tami, after our last conversation, I don't know when that was that like a year ago when you were on Astrology Hub TV?
I think it was January of last year. Yeah.
Okay, so about a year ago, I have been looking forward to reconnecting with you again as well. So this is really exciting, and I'm really super excited to be introducing you to our audience. Um,
Yes.
and, and you know what? I find one of the best ways for people to get to know you and your work before we dive into our topic today is to learn how you got to astrology. Just tell us your story. How did you get into astrology in the first place?
So my first introduction was actually Linda Goodman's Love Signs. I was
No,
probably,
I
I
hear
was,
that a lot.
yeah, right? It's so funny. It was such a good book. I mean, I would like sneak downstairs and I would read it. It was my older sister's. I don't know how she got it. My parents were super Christian, but I loved it because it was such a nuanced, like it was so fun, and it was just this rich understanding of how different kinds of people connected. And so that was my introduction. Fast forward to I had much of my adult life. I was an environmentalist, environmental educator, naturalist, biologist, many other lifetimes. And I ended up hearing a reading from my nephew, my newborn nephew, by Daniel Giamario, who would become my teacher. And I listened to it and I thought, oh my God, like every child should have this kind of thing, right? And so then I went to grad school for environmental writing. And while I was there, it was dark, dark, dark time. And we had just invaded Iraq. And I was deeply questioning everything, just everything. It was just like, how do you actually affect change in the world? And one of the pivotal moments for me was recognizing that two of these women I absolutely was inspired by. One woman who ran a peace center in Missoula, Montana, where I went to grad school. The other woman who had edited this phenomenal nature writing journal. She was an environmentalist too. They both became astrologers. They both shifted their life path completely to become astrologers. And so it really opened the door to me to look at other ways to affect change in the world. And I believe in both and, both feet in both worlds on some level. But yeah, short nutshell, that was kind of, and then I started studying with the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School with Daniel and with that system, and just it felt familiar. I felt like I knew it, and yeah, so that's
Wow,
my
that was
kind of
I have
snapshot.
so many questions off of that. Well, I mean, one of them is so you have a scientific background. And so do you bring that kind of mind to your astrology?
When you say that, it's funny. I have a BA in biology, wildlife biology, right? So um, I struggled with hard science. I'll be really honest with you. But science, I mean, and then it was environmental writing. It was creative nonfiction, studying some of my favorite authors and writers to be a voice for the earth. So I think for me, yes, having a scientific bent, absolutely. And at the same time, my deeper core life purpose has always been centered around being a voice for Gaia, for the earth, and really connecting to that since I was a child. So that definitely, yes. And absolutely, I mean, having a real curiosity for how systems work, that absolutely comes through.
Mm. And we had Donna Woodwell on a few episodes back talking about shamanic astrology, but I'd love to hear your definition of shamanic astrology. What do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, so I know Donna, when she's working with shamanic astrology, it's in a generalized kind of way, and I love that. And actually, I love the way she describes it. It's, seeing the world as an animist. And I would say personally, too, that is core root for me as well. When I say shamanic astrology, the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School is a very, very in-depth certifying program that was sourced by Daniel Giamario, and then dreamed forward by Kaylin Castell. And I was the president of the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School for a time, but it's a particular system that looks at the chart in a particular way, and that also integrates a lot of time for students under the sky, really getting to know the sky in an experiential way. It's part of the training. So yeah, so that's kind of what I mean by that.
I love that. It really brings the shamanic astrology approach really just brings a richness to the whole experience of astrology and actually
Yeah,
helping it to become an experience of astrology. So I love that.
absolutely.
And
Embodied.
yes, exactly. And the other thing is that when you were telling your story about ways that we can affect change and that you had that aha moment of like, okay, there isn't only one way. I think growing up there is that, okay, I'll be an activist. Like I'll do, these things that are
Yeah.
very obvious to affect.
Yes.
But you're right. I mentioned Coast to Coast a lot because I love listening to that show. And I was listening last night and they had someone on talking about depression and the increase in depression and how in the 70s it was more anxiety, but
Mm.
now it's turned into this epidemic of depression. And then that is leading to suicide, which is so strong right now, obviously. And how one of the man who was on was citing one of the biggest reasons for this is because of the disconnect from what we used to have was religion, but so many people don't have just been totally disillusioned
Right.
by that, but just a disconnect to something bigger, something more, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. And that is what's leading to this just sense of like hopelessness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
And one of the biggest gifts of astrology really is bringing people back into, wow, I am a part of something. I do have a purpose. I do have meaning here. And it's written in this language that is incredible and can tell me actually so much more about my life and my direction.
Absolutely. I I so agree with you that when astrology is approached with the depth that it deserves, and I love, I think Astro Hub does that. And when I hear you interview people, you do that. It absolutely, there's such a need for us to have a sense for what we're doing here, what our soul's intent is, and and yeah, if we feel lost kind of in this, there's so many distractions, there's so many energies that can kind of pull us this way or that way. And the astrology chart, if it's approached direct in a really in a good way, which, as we both know, that's such an it's such a combination of having um, a living relationship with the sky. I very much believe in that, having that alive, sentient kind of conversation. To have an astrologer who has that, you could say. I also think that it has to do with connecting into your intuition and having a spiritual kind of core. This is for me personally. I think if you're going to get to the root of what's beneficial in astrology and the chart and the soul purpose based on that, there are a lot of elements that go into that. But the bones of it, just being able to have the bones of something that can help point you in the direction of how you're unique and different than the other person, it's so powerful, because otherwise you can get lost in comparison, and that's just deadly. And I think that's a big part of that depression and hopelessness now too, is that we have access to so much social media and all these messages about who we should be. And I was just, I knew we were talking today about soul purpose, and I was just remembering this quote that I love, which is attributed to Einstein. Actually, it's not by him, but everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. I just love that quote. Isn't that a
Oh,
phenomenal quote, right?
I love that quote, Tammy. That is so good and such a good reminder for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this book about children and education, and there's this. I'm sure I'll be talking about it with you all as episodes progress. But one of the authors was saying when they were looking for teachers for this new kind of school,
Hmm.
one of the main criteria was that the teachers regarded every child as a genius.
Wow.
Genius,
Beautiful.
not
That's
just
amazing.
unique, not just special, but a genius. And can you see each child
Right.
as a genius? And so that just totally is exactly what that quote is saying.
Yep.
We each have that genius inside of us, but if we're trying to be what we're not, then we won't be that.
Absolutely. It's wasted. It's absolutely wasted potential. And to come from that place of knowing, and you and I, and when we are astrologers, we're so privileged because we get to live in that field where ultimately we're vibrating ideally with that energy, with the intelligence of each of these aspects of our being really coming alive and unfolding more and more and more through our lives, and so we're aware of that genius, of the ability to embody that. And then when you look around and I love that you brought up children, because think about all these kids who think that I think that I should be serious and I should study in this way, or I should approach life from this perspective. But in fact, your deep gift is something that has nothing to do with that. It's just, so
You'll grow
potent.
up thinking you're wrong. You'll grow up
Yeah.
thinking there's some, and then we're diagnosing them with all these different, disorders. And so then they just grow up thinking that they're wrong. And
Absolutely.
So this is a big conversation. Let's talk about some misconceptions, because I think these misconceptions about soul purpose can start when we're young. So tell me what you see in your clients as the most common misconceptions about soul purpose.
About soul purpose. Okay. Well, I mean, I can say to my clients and I can say to my own life too, because I just think there can be a way that we almost think it's static, that it just is like this hard, fast thing. I think we can get literalist really easily. And so we're kind of looking for this one life purpose thing that becomes concretized in some way, like I'm supposed to. And I know as an astrologer, I've done that for myself. I've locked myself in a box of what that is. So for my clients, I think when they don't really know necessarily where they're going, where they're headed, what they need to be doing in their lives necessarily, they're feeling lost in some way, when it can be because maybe they've gotten imprinted by their parents and what their parents think that the soul purpose is, or what their parents didn't live and needed to. Maybe their parent was supposed to be a doctor and so they think they should be. Or so then that individual, if they feel this externally imposed soul purpose versus what's emerging from inside of them, then it's crippling. It's not generative. So I've been thinking a lot about this, knowing our conversation there. It's funny because it's more and more, I really do think that it's this, I understood my chart in a certain way when I first learned about it. But now, many years later, I know it's a good system because the bones are the same, but the way I experience that soul purpose is unfolding. It's changing radically. And there's a deep truth to it that I can tap back into all the time. And I think for my clients, that's what I want to be able to do, is in the reading itself, tap back down into the bones of what that is, that their soul purpose is. And also be in a dance with them around and with spirit, to be about what is unfolding that's new in this now, in this moment. So I actually, when I was meditating a lot on this today, like soul purpose, it's like, it's unfolding. There is, but it's that dynamic thing between this vibration you feel in yourself when you're really on purpose, where you've got all your energy at your disposal and you feel this yes to life. That's what it feels like, I think, to be in the soul purpose. And I think when we're not, I was just reading this William Stafford poem that I just love. He's one of my favorite poets. And can I read a little part of it?
Please.
Okay. I just think it's so perfect. Because I think, again, if we're going in a direction that is foreign to our core soul essence, then it feels to me like we're sleepwalking. Discomfort is a tricky thing. Discomfort can actually be good sometimes, not always. I don't believe that it's always a good thing, but I think there's this sense of fogginess, or a lack of center.
Like a numbness?
Yeah, like a numbness, sort of. And that's one of the most dangerous places to be, in my perspective. That's where I've gotten into situations that I think are really not good for me. So here's the beginning of the poem. The name of it is A Ritual to Read to Each Other. And it says, if you don't know the kind of person I am, and I don't know the kind of person you are, a pattern that others made may prevail in the world, and following the wrong God home, we may miss our star. And that's just the beginning part of it. But I love that because, it's just, what does that mean to follow our God or our gods, or our, deeper inner genius, you could say, or spirit, in the way that it calls us to miss that, to go in another direction. In the end of the poem is about, it's like we have to, awake people have to stay awake. It's important to stay awake. And I think that has to do with probably more continually waking up and falling asleep and waking up and falling asleep to
Maybe,
where we
and
are.
hopefully staying awake a little bit longer each
Yeah.
time.
Right.
Wow, that's so interesting. And I love that you bring up what it feels like when we're not on our path, when
Yeah.
we're not in that purpose. And again, I love that you're focusing not on the external, not on,
Mhm.
you won't be, if you're not on path, then you won't be prosperous or you won't be healthy. It's like, no, you're going to feel numb and asleep. And
Mhm.
it's a vague sensation. And actually, when you're in it, it's sometimes hard to even know you're in it.
Yes,
And
exactly.
and
Yeah, exactly.
that's why having external reflections, having those, and I
Mhm.
love ritualized points in our
Absolutely.
life where it's like, okay, wait, stop, wake up for a sec. What's going
Mhm.
on? Am I on the right path? Is this do I feel alive? That question of,
Absolutely.
do I feel alive? Do I feel juiced? Do I feel jazzed? And, we've had a lot of people come on and we've talked about this a lot, that you don't always feel, even like you were saying, when you're on
Mhm.
purpose, you're not always going to feel happy or
Mhm.
pleasant. It's not always going to be that, but I think that spark, that energy, that aliveness is there.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that aliveness is there. And I think that we're in such a growing edge collectively, around understanding this. It's about the masculine feminine dance that I see so much of the extreme polarities right now, between that. And I said it's a yes, yes, yes. Like it feels like a yes to life. And of course, I have to tell you that in the course we're doing, I'm speaking to the moon. So I actually had the intent that I partly speak from the perspective of my moon in Gemini. So that may come out.
Great. When your moon in Gemini, will come out and play with my moon in Gemini. That's perfect.
Okay. Um, yeah, so I just totally lost where I was. But that it's yes, but it's also the clear no. It is that feeling of like I'm present. There's a presence aspect to it.
Yes. Great. Okay. I love this exploration because it's true. It's like getting literal about, oh, this is my soul purpose. I think it can feel like a trap. And then it's like, well, what if I don't know what that is exactly,
Yeah,
and how I'm supposed to manifest it, how it's supposed to look.
right.
Um, Go ahead.
Just I think also because everything is so rapid paced right now. We're evolving in some ways so rapidly too. What I've come to recognize is many of us, we actually do need to be able to let go of the story more rapidly. So what I thought my sole purpose was last year, it may be different now. So to actually be alive and present enough in the moment to say, oh, well, this is actually, it's like it's that these archetypal energies inside of us are coming alive more and more and more and shedding the layers of what is untruth. And that, so it's going to change.
I love that. And that was one of my questions for you is, do you think life purpose changes over a lifetime?
And yes and no. I mean, I think we're multidimensional beings. I love to practice exercises like looking at this parallel life where I made this choice versus the other choice and following that track and seeing where it takes me, and then really feeling that I can access the wisdom of all those different paths at once. Um, and so in a way that's kind of expanding what soul purpose is. Um, I do think there, again, like for myself, my soul purpose is I know that it has so much to do with being an agent to try to um, support Gaia, like Gaia's emergence on this earth, and to align human beings with the actual alive universe, the animate, the alive, throbbing, conscious, ecstatic universe. That is like my core purpose, to see the magic in life, right? But that also is changing, because what I mean, even when I say that, is changing. So it becomes bigger. It expands. I think it expands as
Great.
we do.
Yes. All right. Let's talk about the moon and soul purpose. So, in our upcoming soul purpose course, you are going to be helping us decode our moon placement and what our moon tells us about our soul purpose. So, can you tell us just at a high level what we're
Yeah.
looking at there? How does the moon give us insights on that?
Hmm. Yeah, so I am literally using the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School's approach to that. So Daniel Giamario's, and it's powerful. It is different than in most systems. So in this system, the moon sign has to do with our soul lineage. So what it is that we bring in from the past, what is the mastery that we have, whether you look at that as cellular memory, genetic heritage, past lives, it's what we come in with. And the understanding of that is so, so vital in many nuanced ways. One way is if you know what you're already good at, but that sign you come in with as a moon sign is something like Scorpio that's been absolutely perceived in a negative light over patriarchy, then your work might be to actually uncover your lineage and reclaim it, do a soul retrieval on that lineage, on the Scorpio energy that you have inside of you. And when you do, some light comes on. It's like, oh my God, like now I have the generative energy I need for the rest of my life in my chart. That's one example. So it has to do with what is your innate genius. And then a deeper understanding we'll go into is how in each individual chart you can kind of use that to fuel the rest of it.
Okay, so the moon more as like a focal point or a starting point to
Yes.
understanding your soul purpose.
Yes.
Wow, interesting. That's going to be so fun. So you guys, we're actually going to go through every single moon sign. So no matter what moon placement you have, you will get all the details about what that means about your soul purpose. And I love this emphasis on our lineage, you know, and what we've come in, what sort of soul family would you say that? It's kind of like our soul family that we're
Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, we even say like it's we talk about the tribe or the job in the tribe or the clan. Yeah, we talk about it that way. Yes,
Very nice.
absolutely.
Okay, tell us about some of your favorite books or resources that people can look into on soul purpose.
You know, it's so interesting because I love, one of the traditional, like one of the sources I read a while back that I really love that I still really like is Jan Spillman. I think it's a soul purpose. It's that book about the nodes. And I really love that book, actually. I think it's very useful. I will, again, say the Shamanic Astrology Handbook because I really do still, even after all these years, I find it to be good bones for understanding the soul purpose in the chart, the soul intent. I love that. I also, this is going to sound a little interesting, there's so many books about Enneagram, so many different astrology books that are phenomenal about the different placements in the chart. I actually recommend that people learn about dreaming. Also, that they read any kind of book about how to work with their dreams, because that helps them unfold the soul purpose in a kind of a living way to be in that unfolding exploration. Gosh, I mean, there's so many. Also, yeah, so there's so many, but those are just a few.
Perfect. Okay, Tami, so a lot of astrologers are talking about 2020 and the big alignments that are going to be happening that year and the intensity, I guess I'll say, that's anticipated.
Yes.
Would you talk about that a little bit? And then also talk to us about the timing of really getting some clarity and getting some confidence on your soul purpose, like now. You know, why is now a
Mm-hmm.
particularly good time
Yeah.
to be exploring that?
Well, I mean, I'll say first because, today while we're talking, we've got Jupiter and the moon very close to each other in Sagittarius. And, I really see that Jupiter and Sagittarius this year, that's part of it, is that it's helping us expand our vision and tune into our personal and collective vision, which is so important. But yeah, 2020, I actually think it's really beneficial that so many of us are focused on it. But I think the reason why it's so essential, I do think it will be intense. I already think we're in the intensity though. I don't think it's just going to like, here it is 2020 and all of a sudden there we are. I think we've been building to that. I also think so many of us are in that. So I think it has to do with when we have a feeling of soul purpose, when we're grounded in that for ourselves personally, and we're coming from that place of inner alignment, then it is very much like we're at a kind of a still point. We're the center of this storm where we have a clear yes, we have a clear no to the kinds of choices that are presented, to us moment to moment. And so I think, as we all know, in times of a lot of change, chaos, which we've been gaining muscles around, we've been strengthening ourselves around how to address change. That when we have more of that grounded way of being, which is, again, knowing our purpose, that is the deepest ground of our being, then we can come from an intuitive place, more access to the sympathetic system rather than just sympathetic, not just going into fight or flight, but into our deeper intelligence, our genius, as you said. So that's what I would, say about that.
Do you have any practices that you use to help you stay in that centered place?
I have so many. But I will say that the main, I have just been going back a lot to meditation, just simple, for a long time I kind of veered from that, and I've gone back to it. I do some of it in the morning and at night, but when I do, I also do a lot of guided visualizations. I think that's more of a feminine practice, just to have those images. I connect to the light always. I bring the light down from galactic center, through my body and down to the galactic core. I radiate it from my heart. That's a very simple thing that many of us do. I will say too, I spend a lot of time under the sky, and at night I try to do that. It's harder when it's cold out, but I try to do that. And then I also like to go out in the mornings and offer cornmeal and prayers to the directions. I connect to the land and the spirits of the land, and make prayers, and I sing. Those are just some things I do that help me stay grounded and connected.
Very nice, Tami. Thank you. One final question. And if you have any stories of clients that have felt lost, they came to you feeling lost, feeling purposeless, and then astrology really helped them to get on their path. Can you tell us any stories of transformation that you've experienced from your clients?
Yeah. So what comes to mind is one client in particular that I recently was working with, and he had been working with a lot. He's just been trying to navigate a lot in his life around, what is this next step that I'm taking? Am I in the right place with my work? And in the course of really going through the chart, it really helped him to be able to see that he, even though in some ways it felt like he was in a blocked place, he could see that actually that where he was going was actually in a good direction. So oftentimes I have to say, for my clients and for myself, I get stuck when I'm continually doubting myself, and then I end up meeting my soul purpose in a slower way. I see that for my clients as well. So there's so much actually about when I give a reading, maybe this is the level of clients I work with, where they are reminded of what they already know and strengthened in that. So they don't do as much self-sabotage, so that they move more into that place of trust, that they kind of know what they're up to. And so that's, that tends to be what I experience, and the feedback I get when people listen to their charts later too, is that they just, it helped them to see the places where they were already moving in a good direction, and allow to fall away the places where that's not really so.
That's huge. That's huge. Giving that clarity and focus, and that permission to keep going in the direction that feels right.
Right.
Yeah. Tami, thank you so much for being with us today. I am really looking forward to your participation as a teacher in our Soul Purpose course, and also to experience your reading of the moon for our live chart reading demo that we're going to be doing on March 26th and 27th. So that's going to be really fun for any of you that want to actually watch this in action, where you can see Tami and her peers actually reading charts from audience members. And approaching them as if they were clients and decoding, what does this chart say about this person's purpose, and what answers can this person get from their astrology chart. So we'll be doing that on March 26th and 27th. You can register for that now by going to astrologyhub.com/soul. This is totally free. We have 2 days of it, and we'll be reading about 3 to 4 charts a day. So you'll be able to come in and watch that. So again, that's astrologyhub.com/soul. And I know that by seeing how they interpret other people's charts, you'll get some great insight on your chart as well. So Tami, thank you. Thank you so much. I look forward to playing with you more in the upcoming weeks.
Yes, me too. Thank you, Amanda. It's such a blast to be with you always.
All right. I think, well, we're obviously from the same soul family if we both are Gemini moon.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, Tami. We'll see you soon.
All right. Okay.